NSIC basketball has been a mixed bag all season long, especially in the South Division. And to raise a little bit more havoc before the NSIC tournament, the Vikings would be responsible for a few more last-minute shakeups. I'm Carla Metz, and welcome to Augustana All Access. Winona State and Upper Iowa were set to visit the Vikings this weekend. A win over one opponent and not the other would be significant in seeding in the conference tournament. A loss to both could be inevitably fatal, but luckily for Augustana, they'd experienced neither. Wins over both opponents for the men's and women's teams left them with an outcome that just a few weeks ago might have seemed impossible. We start the highlights from the women's game against Winona State. Augustana beat the Warriors the first time around 80-63, but would they be able to do it again? A little under 5 minutes left in the first half. Warriors up by 3 when Hannah Matoxen nails a shot from behind the arc. A jumper by WSU's Jenny Tuttle gives them a 2-point advantage, but free throws by Logan O'Farrell ties it back up. And those two baskets are noted for giving Logan her 1,000th point as an Augustana Viking. We see Paige Peterson stepping up here, adding a quick 2 inside. She'd be just one of 2 Vikings to reach double digits. Despite shooting a lower percentage from the field and from the three than the Warriors, the Vikings made up for it by out-rebounding them 44-31, taking advantage of second-chance points. Shelby Sellen's 15 points and a balanced attack off the bench helped Augustana take down Winona State 73-67. The Augustana men followed and they got their 20th win of the season. The 87-70 victory gave the Vikings their third straight 20-plus season. Mike Busak led with 22 points and 9 rebounds, followed by John Warren, who tallied 18 points, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and 7 boards. Augie never trailed in the meeting with the Warriors, shooting 48% from the field and going 11 of 26 from the perimeter. The next night brought the Upper Iowa Peacocks, and not much of a contest at all for the women. The Vikings rolled over Upper Iowa 93-42, giving them their largest margin of victory since 2013. The Vikings shot a season-high 17 three-pointers and were led by senior Sydney Rome with 16. Quick runs of 11 and 12 at the start of the contest would be to the Peacocks' demise. With the win, the Vikings cement the regular season with a 22-7 overall record, 17-5 in conference, and for the first time ever in program history, an NSIC South Division title and a #1 seed heading into the tournament. Switching to the men's game on Saturday, the Vikings faced a Peacock team who had beat them by 4 points earlier in the season. Down by 9 in the second half, John Warren helps the Vikings start cutting into Upper Iowa's lead. Mike Busak would follow, sinking a shot from the three-point line. He'd end the night with 27, helping him surpass the 1,000-point mark. Under 5 minutes left in regulation, we'd hear from Zach Huskins with a layup to tie things up at 65. The senior forward would help put a career-high 18 on the night. Free throws by Huskins would help the Vikings take the meeting into overtime, and from there, the Vikings would outscore the Peacocks 17-12, with Busak and Jordan Spencer accounting for 15 of those points. The win over Upper Iowa improves Augustana's record to 21-7, 16-6 in the NSIC, and gives them the #3 seed heading into the tournament. When we come back, we give you reaction from Coach Billiter on the weekend and look ahead to the first round of the NSIC tournament. But before we let you go, let's look at this week's Vikings vote. Mike Busak reached 1,000 points as a collegiate athlete this past weekend. How many points did he have before becoming an Augustana Viking? Take a look at the choices, take a guess, and find out the answer a little later.
Augustana All Access on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Classic Import.
Welcome back to Augustana All Access. I'm joined by Coach Tom Billiter to go over the final 2 games of the regular season. And Coach, we've got a lot to go over. Let's start just with the game against Winona State. We said last week it was important for your team not to look past the Warriors. What'd you do well to prepare for this game?
Sometimes the good Lord works in mysterious ways. They almost beat us. They should have beat us at their place. So I think by the effect of the game in Winona, that really had our guys' attention instead of overlooking them. And you know, at one point we were what were we? We were 10-6. Mm-hmm. So we knew when we were 10-6 to be. I thought we had to at least go 5-1, have a chance, but we really kind of needed to run the table. So every game brought a significant importance. And when it's this time of the year, losing a game that you should win will hurt you even more than winning a game maybe you should lose, if that makes sense. So Winona's very good. I'm not saying we should win the game. They should have beaten us at their place, but at our place, it's a game on paper we're supposed to win. But they always play us well. You have a prolific scorer player like Riley Bamanek that can just carry a team. Thought we did a great job of limiting him to 9 shots. He still scored 16, 18 points, but he only did it on 9 shots, and I thought John Warren did a very good job on him. And overall, it was a 17-point win or 18, whatever it was, but 87-70. But it wasn't that kind of a game. It was kind of always a 10 or 12-point game. They hung in there very well, and they always play us extremely hard, and they did. And so it felt good to get the win, and it was kind of hard as a staff. I thought we did as best job we could to prepare them, but we were kind of looking to Saturday a little bit ourselves, and that's dangerous. You can't really do that, but Saturday was going to be a very important game for us.
Right. You mentioned John Warren defensively. He had 18 points. Of course, Mike Busack had a great game. Zach Huskins, can't leave him out, especially in really both the games. He had a season-high 15 points followed by a career-high 18 points.
Yep.
Is this just, senior night, his last 2 regular season games?
That's a good point. We've been trying to figure it out, too. We thought he'd be this way all year, and he's had a good, solid year for us. But I will say this with Zach. I think when he plays bigger guys, he's better. And Winona's big. They have ball. I mean, they just keep bringing them in, too. They've got big guys. And Upper Iowa has a good front line, has a couple decent, good-sized guys. And I just think that, Zach is a very good basketball player. He's been a little bit inconsistent for whatever reason this year. And he's got a lot going on in his life. He's doing his student teaching. He's recently gotten married. He's really quite a busy young man at his age, and he does a great job on all fronts. And so I think probably more than anything, I wouldn't disagree. The focus of senior night was probably something also as well. But I felt bad. His dad is in Africa. They have an orphanage situation over there, and they just do a phenomenal job with young kids over there. And so he missed senior night, and I was kind of wishing Kurt could have been here because the 5 years have been pretty special with that family, and we're all very proud of Zach.
Right, yeah, I think he had only reached double figures maybe 4 times before that game, but yeah, a great weekend for him and back-to-back games. Well, moving on to Upper Iowa, you beat them in overtime, 92-87. Now, the first time around, they beat you by 4. So what's your team doing later in the season to win these games? I think we talked a little bit about it last week, but to the end, earlier in the season, they would have lost that game.
One thing, Mike Busack's getting more comfortable with everything we do. He knows what we do now. It's hard to bring kids in. We've always talked about we take very few transfers, and we don't take a lot of transfers. We do it with high school kids, and we teach them a system. They learn what we do. We have a system offensively. We have a defensive system. You come in here for 1 year, that's hard to do. I think Mike's done a great job of coming to practice every day, getting better, wanting to learn, and he's really more comfortable with what we're doing. That game at their place, they beat us with 0.3 of a second left. It was tied with 0.3 of a second. Carson Parker hit a deep 3, and then we fouled with 0.1 of a second left on the free throws or whatever. So it ended up being a 4-point game, but they literally were tied with us with 0.3 of a second left in the game. And so, that game should have been overtime. This one was overtime. I think it's 2 very even teams regardless of where they play, and it could be interesting if we would meet them down the road in the NSIC tournament over in the Pentagon, because it's a fun game. I really think Brooks has done a great job, but he's got a good team. Those are good players. And I think I've always said you're the only Division II in a state with really good Division II players. It's a pretty good situation, and he's done a good job with them.
Right, and Upper Iowa, of course, the game against Upper Iowa, there was a lot on the line, but since you beat them, you're tied for second in the South Division with a number 3 seed in the tournament, and you face Bemidji State this week. What's 2 things that your team needs to really zero in on?
It's a dangerous game. I just watched our game against them last night, and you kind of forget we ended up winning by 18, but with about 8 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go in the game, we were up 2, and then we were up 4, and it was like a 6, and then about in the last 6 minutes, we really just went on about a 14-2 run to make the score a little bit more deceiving than it really was, Carl. I mean, that game, we were down at the half. I mean, it was a different game than what the score indicates on that one, too, and Giovanni Green is just a great player. They've got a very good team. They can score the basketball. When they're making shots, they're very, very good, and they play hard. They guard. So it wasn't the first round opponent we were hoping for. We need to go out and play them and play as well as we can. But it wasn't who we wanted. But we dictated that to ourselves by losing some games we probably shouldn't have lost earlier in the year.
Right, and not looking too far ahead, obviously, in the tournament, but just approaching tournament time. What's kind of your your go-to to keep your team refreshed?
Yeah, I think what we've done a great job of in the last month is just make our practices competitive, shorter, more fun, get a lot of shooting up. I say shorter, we're still with stretching and everything, seems like we're out there 2 hours, but that's short sometimes. So when they're fun, it doesn't seem as long. And so I think our guys have really embraced the situation. They want to stay, keep playing. I got some seniors. For being a young team and really developing some young big guys, we're still senior Latin in a certain way, in terms of adding Adam Byer, Mike Buzak, Zach, those are 3 good seniors that play a lot. And so, for them to keep their year going, we need to win a couple more games, I think, just to make sure we're not sitting on that 7th or 8th seed. You'd like to be the 5th or 6th just to be sure you don't get knocked out on a couple conference tournament teams winning their tournament who aren't ranked in the top 8.
Right. All right. Well, we'll catch up with you after the
Thanks a lot,
NSIC
Carl.
tournament,
Yep.
and we're going to catch up with Coach Dave Krauth on their exciting finish in the regular season after this. Welcome back to Augustana All Access. I'm joined by Coach Dave Krauth to go over the games against Winona State and Upper Iowa. And before we get started, Coach, we just have to say congratulations to you. The 2 wins this weekend gave you your first ever South Division title in program history.
Yep.
So first question, how good does it feel to be able to do this with your team?
Well, I mean, it's an accomplishment, and you're certainly proud of it. When you've got games, especially this week with the Wednesday game, a quick turnaround, sometimes you can't be patting yourself on the back too long. You just got to get ready for the next one. But it was, it was dog eat dog, 22 conference games, and it really, 2 through 5 fighting for a home game. There's 1 game difference and
Right.
several ties. So it was a tough division and something we're proud of.
Yeah, definitely not anything that we maybe could have predicted even just
No,
3 weeks ago.
no,
So kind of crazy there. Well, let's start with the game against the Warriors. Actually, if you're looking at just the stat sheet, they had a better percentage than you did pretty much all the way around, except for maybe the free throw line. You had 2 players that reached double digits compared to their 4. So despite all of that, how'd your team get it done against?
Well, I mentioned, I guess it was after that game that that was the 3rd game in a row, the last 2 on the road, where we're 35% was, I think, the Winona game. That was our best percentage in those 3, and we're able to win all 3 of them. So we just had done, a number of other things. So, you look at the possession game and how many times you turn it over or force. There wasn't that wasn't a dramatic stat in that game, but we hung in there, and like you mentioned, got ourselves to the free throw line a little bit, and then I thought did a nice job of guarding the 3-point line against them, which they can really get going there. So it was almost exactly the kind of game I expected, and fortunately it went our way.
Yeah, and I felt like it was a very balanced attack just
Yeah.
from your bench too. Like I said, you only had 2 players reach double figures, but everybody else kind of played a part in this game too.
Yeah, no, it was pretty typical of us, where Logan, who's our leading scorer, she did reach 1,000, I believe, that night, but was in single digits, and so we just, it kind of, I don't know if we go to the person with a hot hand, I'm not quite so sure, but our ball movement and stuff has gotten better over the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely something we want to continue into the tournament. Well, moving on to the game against Upper Iowa, you beat them 93-42. It was your largest margin of victory, I think, since maybe back in 2013. But you got out to a really big lead. Second quarter, I think you started off with a basket, and you were already at 24-4. What helped you jump out to that lead so quick?
Well, we didn't, our first couple possessions I didn't know because like we so often have, maybe missed shots or missed easier shots that we normally might make, but we just got going, then hit a few shots, and it kind of, again, energized us, and then we get a few turnovers and got a couple nice defensive plays in there, and it was like we were off to the races, and I couldn't remember the last time we had a first half, kind of a blowout, really. And it was, I felt a little sorry for them. Upper Iowa had just lost their best player the weekend before to an ACL knee injury, and I thought played a little bit like it. They were kind of looking for the kid that takes the most shots and all that type of thing. But we just got after it, and I was real happy. Everybody played, and dozen people scored and all. So senior night, it was a good way to end our regular season.
Yeah, and to go off senior night, very fitting that Sydney Rome led the team with 16 points. She really, she steps up very consistently for your team, but she seems to be a very foundational player for your team, especially this season.
Yeah, done a real nice job being a leader for us, and it was one of those where senior nights don't always, statistically or whatever, it's kind of emotional for kids, and then sometimes the play doesn't reflect them, but she had a nice game. Came off, her last shot was a tough three right before she came out for the last time, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool for her. Well, you have the number 1 seed heading into the tournament. You face Minot State first in the first round of the NSIC tournament. Name 2 things that you really need to see your team to continue on in the NSIC tournament.
Well, I've really been harping energy, and we talk about it before every game, but it's, over the last few weeks, it has kind of been there for us, where they've really willed themselves to play hard and defend, which is energy and effort. And then I think the other area would be where I'm not going to necessarily name it. It's like, don't have a real deficient area where you turn the ball over too many times, or you just get beat up on the boards, or whatever it may be. And I think if we just hold our own and like I said, play with that energy that we've had now, I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
All right, Coach. Well, we'll see you after the NSIC tournament is over. Well, the wrestling team also finished up their regular season this past weekend, and we'll recap their last duel after this. Welcome back. The wrestling team's regular season wrapped up with a meeting against the number 1 team in the country, St. Cloud State. A win against the Huskies would give Augustana, Minnesota State, and St. Cloud State a shot at the NSIC team title, but a loss would result in St. Cloud State's 6th consecutive NSIC championship. And it would be the latter of the 2 choices that would find the Vikings Thursday night. Brandon Carroll would be up first for the Vikings in the 125-pound weight class, taking on Brett Velasquez. Carroll would lose by major decision 12-4, and that would follow with the Vikings losing 6 straight matches until Arrow Amo took the mat. Number 5 Arrow Amo was pit against number 6 Uthman Rabu. Amo had a 4-2 lead going into the 3rd period. Amo on bottom escaped and scored, and although Rabu was able to record a takedown late in the 3rd, Amo would hold on to a 6-2 lead to give Augustana their first points of the match. Amo's win was followed by Ben Goodwin's win in the 197-pound division. Goodwin upset number 5 Vince Diaz with a 6-3 decision. With the match tied at 2 heading into the 3rd, Goodwin recorded a takedown to take a 4-2 lead, with which Diaz responded with an escape. But another takedown by Goodwin would solidify the Viking victory. The Vikings would go on to lose the match 30-6, giving the Huskies another conference championship.
Yeah, hopefully you have a little chip on your shoulder after giving up them kind of points in that kind of match. We expected to go out and battle and make the matches, competitive. And I thought we battled hard and were competitive. It's just, again, we were giving up too many points in certain situations. 25, we wrestled hard. We were after the kid, but we gave up some backers. Same thing with 41 and 49, and we're not finishing matches the way we need to. We're not finishing periods the way we need to. But the guys know we can compete with these guys. They're number 1 in the nation. Every guy in their team's ranked. Yet we know we can compete with them if we go out there and wrestle solid matches, and we just didn't do that in a lot of them.
The Vikings end the season 3rd in the NSIC with an overall record of 12-7, and they look ahead to the Super Region 3 Championship, which will take place in Moorhead, Minnesota on February 24th and 25th. And a wrestler who's hoping to do well at the Super Region 3 Championship is Michael Lohman, who's originally from North Highlands, California. We get to know more about Lohman with a quick little question-answer feature.
I'm Michael Lohman. I'm from North Highlands, California. I was kind of in between picking my decision for schools, either doing football or wrestling. I had a couple of schools looking at me for football, and then I had a couple for wrestling, but nothing too extreme. I got a call from Coach Tom Meester, and he just kind of persuaded me. He was like, hey, we don't have a heavyweight. We really would like to bring you out for a visit, at least come check out the school. And I came out and checked it out. Love the guys, love the coaches, and that's pretty much what influenced my decision. I'd have to say football. Yeah. Oakland Raiders. Oh, my dad was a Raider fan, you know, and just kind of grew up in a Raider household. I want to teach physical education and health, and then also I want to coach wrestling. Probably say Brandon Carroll. You know, he's a funny kid, freshman. He stepped up this year, and you know, usually when freshmen step up or they get put in the varsity spot, they're kind of shy and quiet. But no, he's a funny kid. Just the coaching, the coaches, the way they act, the way they react to every single one of my matches. You know, whether good or bad. That's probably one of my favorite things. So I really can't narrow it down to a single memory, but that's probably one of my favorite things around here.
When we come back, we'll give you the answer to this week's Vikings vote.
Augustana All Access on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Classic Import.
Our Vikings vote question of the week: Mike Busack reached 1,000 points as a collegiate athlete this past week. How many points did he have before becoming an Augustana Viking? Your choices were above 400, above 500, above 700, and above 800. The correct answer this week is B, above 500. He scored 573 points in his 3 seasons at Minnesota State, which means he scored 445 points just this season as a Viking to give him a total of 1,018 points in his collegiate career. So quite the season for Busack, who's also pursuing his 2nd degree in sports administration and leadership. It's time to give you our pick for player of the week, and this week we give it to a set of Vikings. The women's tennis team reached 80 straight NSIC regular season wins with a 9-0 victory over MSUM. The Vikings didn't drop a set to the Dragons and improved to 3-0 in the conference, so congrats to the team on a long-standing tradition of excellence. That's all we have for you on this week's episode of Augustana All Access. Catch us next week for a full recap on the NSIC tournament and stay up to date on the Vikings' path into postseason by visiting GoAugie.com. Thanks for watching.